Shabbat Shalom again. Just last night, I came across this letter published on the UJA Facebook page, written by a teenager to prominent Canadian Holocaust survivor and educator Max Eisen of blessed memory, after he visited her school assembly back in 2012 in order to tell his powerful story. And it reads as follows. Dear Max, my name is Emma. I am 15 years old and listened to your story. Words can't really begin to explain how I felt listening to your story. What you said captivated everyone in the room, even students that aren't always interested in others unless it has to do with themselves. I wish I could better say how deeply sorry I am that your childhood was robbed from you. I can never possibly fathom how this altered your life forever. But I recognize how you have impacted the world, my fellow classmates, friends, even myself. When my friend and I left the auditorium, everything felt dreamlike and unreal. It's hard to believe what you once went through was reality. It's scary knowing humans are capable of such evil. It's even harder knowing you and millions had to endure living in a nightmare. Part of me wishes I knew exactly what you were going through and how you felt. The other part of me is grateful I can only imagine and empathize with your experience. What you said brought history to life. It wasn't just dates and battles, it was tangible, real. You made me seriously reflect on the entire World War II unit and have a new respect for it. History is a tricky subject. It's important to learn from it and not repeat it, but it's also hard not to rewrite it or be biased. I'm grateful that you told your story straight and true. I think you've changed everyone, at least for that day, and some forever. It's incredible what you're doing. I learned and felt so much. It's really amazing what you have done with your life. There were so many different paths you could have taken. Thank you for exposing your life to me and my classmates. Although you do not know who I am, I will never forget you or your words. Sincerely, Emma. This moving and heartfelt letter caused me to think on this International Holocaust Remembrance Day about our obligation as Jews to remember, but more specifically, what does remembering mean and what does remembering look like? Again, as Jews. Our parasha this Shabbat, Parashat Bo, is a fascinating meditation on this idea as we navigate conflicting views of what memory might look like. On one hand, memory is the moment, fleeting, something we recall when we have the chance. After all, we are taught that we were so hurried out of Egypt that we didn't have time to bake our bread, and as a result, we took matzah with us instead. According to the Plaut commentary, this is the reason that only the first and last days of Pesach count as Yom Tov. The final day is dedicated to Adonai, and the first day/night, our first Seder, is the only time that we are obligated to actually eat matzah, even though on all other days, any other bread that we consume would still need to be matzah. Which leads us to the other side of the coin, in which our Torah commands, Shivat Yamim Matzot Tochelu. For 7 days you shall eat unleavened bread. Not commanded, but you shall do this. We are, in other words, still commanded to commemorate a full 7-day festival period in which we only eat unleavened products. This can frankly feel like a long time, considering the preparation and everything that happens in between. We hold our Seder, or maybe multiple starim. We refrain from many of our favorite foods. We might travel to be with our families, or even clean and change our whole kitchen over to Pesach dishes. The memories of our ancestors and the Exodus subsequently linger in the air, indelible and ingrained, and become part and parcel of the atmosphere of the week, which is, in fact, the very point. On that note, the late Rabbi Lord Jonathan Sacks elaborates here that, with the Israelites finally on the brink of their freedom in this parashah, Moses had much that he could have spoken about at this crucial juncture, one at which he has all of his people gathered. He could have chosen to talk about freedom, the end of the period of slavery, or the land of milk and honey towards which they were about to venture. He could also have taken a much more somber route, addressing the many dangers and difficulties that inevitably lay ahead. Yet Moses did none of that, and instead speaks to the Israelites about their duty to pass on memory to the future generations, even those that were not yet born. Moses in Parashat Bo teaches that we shall respond when our children question the different rituals and traditions associated with Pesach. With a mighty hand, God brought us out of the land of Egypt, out of the land of slavery. Not me, not you, not the child, but all of us, forever. Those present and not present, those in existence, and those whose existence is yet to come into being. Moses is subsequently transformed into Moshe Rabbeinu, Moses, our teacher. On this journey from oppression to liberty, Moses turns our people into teachers, recognizing that lessons, in this case of freedom, are not taught effectively unless they touch the human heart and human mind, our human imaginations and human wills. To remember is easy, Moses is saying, but to sustain that memory is the work of 100 generations. This is exactly why we read in our Mishnah and in the Pesach Haggadah, B'chol dor vador adam chayav adam lirot et atzmo ki'ilu hu yatsa mimitzrayim. In every generation, one must see themselves as if they too came out of Egypt. It is also the reason that we eat the bitter herbs, to physically remind ourselves of the bitterness that afflicted our ancestors, and ultimately to remind ourselves that God redeemed not only our forebearers, but every generation after that, up until today, until us, sitting here in this Mishkan, this Shabbat. Memory thus becomes for us as Jews an embodied experience. We internalize it, we reflect on it, we chew on it, quite literally in the case of Pesach, and we take memory forward into our lives as part of the very essence of our being. Finally, memory is unique within our tradition because it is sanctified as holy within our tradition. On Shabbat, when we sing, and just saying L'chadadi, we sing the line, Shamor v'zachor b'dibor echad hishmi'anu el hameyuchad. Adonai echad u'shemo echad, l'shem o l'tiferet v'lithilah. Keep and remember, spoken as one, just as they were made heard to us by the one God. God is one and God's name is one, for renown, for splendor, and for praise. So let us look at the first two words of this famous verse, Shamor, meaning to keep, and Zachor, meaning to remember. Shamor, you might know, also means to guard. In other words, we are the ones who are tasked with protecting the memories of our people, of passing them along to the next generation through education and action, and entrusting that they shall continue, that these memories shall continue to be transmitted ever after. In that way, Zachor, we remember. Not just in a fleeting way, but tangibly through our actions. Whether it's lighting Shabbat candles, eating matzah, listening to the Pesach story around the Seder table, or sitting in a school assembly bearing witness to the testimony of a survivor of the Shoah. In this way, memory becomes sacred, as our tradition teaches, nay, commands us to do. Max Eisner passed away earlier this summer. He dedicated his life to both education and action, to the Shamor v'Zachor of his own time, writing an award-winning memoir and traveling all over our good country of Canada, and even on much of the living a poignant 18 times, telling his story so that future generations, including children like Emma, would take his memories into their own hearts and not forget but use his words as fuel for the fires of their own actions as they and we work towards freedom and redemption in our time. As his obituary in the Canadian Jewish News stated, he made it his life's mission to educate and teach so it never happens again. And although the confluence of our commemorations this evening, International Holocaust Memorial Day, Shabbat, and this Parashat Bo, all about Pesach, each come at their set time and place, this week may we learn that they are part of the story, that it is not just memory, but what we do with it, which is our sacred Jewish obligation this day and forever. Ken Yiratzon and Shabbat Shalom.